Well, hello. We're bringing you a video from Gord's Place. I'm working on a 1955 Studebaker V8 with a mechanical fuel pump. I just rebuilt this engine and it fires up and runs, but I have to keep dribbling gas into the carb to keep it going. So I suspected the fuel pump was defective, so I removed that and I've got it on the bench and I'm going to do a bench test on it. And I thought I'd just show you how I set up for the bench test. I've simply put it in a vise with a see-through pickup line or supply line out of a small bottle, and I use the original fuel line that goes to the carburetor going back to that small bottle. When I pump this, I should be able to see flow through that plastic line going up to the pump, and I should be able to see fuel delivery going into the plastic bottle. So all I've got to do is just take this lever here and pump it as if it was a cam lobe and get vacuum. And here's my vacuum gauge hooked up. I haven't got the fuel supply hooked up yet. As you can see, the vacuum's not going up and holding. So I'm going to take this off now and put this fuel supply line down into the fuel here in this bottle. You don't need a great big gas can to do this. You just need enough fuel to load the lines, and it should pick up out of that bottle and pump. But you see, it's only coming up this far, and we're not getting any fuel delivery down here. So that's my bench test for this. And now I'm going to take this body apart, and I'm going to check and see if the diaphragms are still good, because ethanol fuel eats out the old rubber style diaphragms in these pumps. And if this pump hasn't been upgraded to a new Vicon type rubber, the rubbers are going to be destroyed. So I'll pause the video, take it apart, and I'll come back in a few minutes when I've got it apart. Okay, so I've got the pump set up ready to take it apart. If you notice, one thing I'm doing is I'm using soft jaws here on this pump mounting flange, because the vise has got some pretty harsh gripping teeth. It'll mark that up and you can have leaks result from that. Now I'm just going to take this screw out here and these screws out here, and that'll open up the whole assembly. It's pretty simple, and we'll see what's inside. Now it's always important to keep your assemblies clocked correctly. That is the relationship between the inlet and the outlet. All kinds of different things that you do this with when you're doing mechanical repairs. And this, because this has got gasoline all around it, just putting a felt marker on like this, you can't trust it's going to be there when you go to put it back together. So for many, many years I've been using a small, very sharp center punch and simply staking it in a couple of places. You don't want to make great big dents in it, just big enough that you can find it when you look for it. And do that and you'll have no problem orienting this thing back in place when it's time to reassemble it. So all the different parts of the body that you're going to take apart, make sure you stake on both sides and both sides here, and you'll have no problem putting it back together. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to remove this screw that holds this top cap on here. It's a very simple assembly. You'll notice I'm using a magnetic tray to hold my assembly screws in, because when they fall on the floor, like that almost fell on the floor, you'll lose them. So first thing I'm going to check is this rubber here. Now this looks like it's still in good condition. So this pump is rebuilt last time, or built in about 2017. So it's got 5 years of service using ethanol type gas probably. So it's probably not rotted out. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this part of the body off. We'll just undo all these screws. And I'm going to have to pause and go and answer the phone. I'll come back when I've got that piece off. Sorry about that delay. I had a little phone call from a car buddy down in Mexico. He wanted to make sure that he got signed up in our car club again this year. We're affiliated with Vintage Car Club of Canada. And our club name is the Peachland Wheel Nuts. So that's got nothing to do with rebuilding and repairing this pump, but I've got to say something while I'm doing this, I guess. Otherwise, you just got to look at my ugly mug. Nobody needs that. So, as I said, I'm using a magnetic dish to hold these fasteners because when they fall on the floor, I have a hard time finding them. I'd play some background music, but I've only got two hands. Okay, this last one back here. This type of pump you can take apart like this. Some of the cheaper ones are crimped together and you basically can't repair them. So I'm going to take this apart and check this other diaphragm and see how it looks. There's the check valves there. That's another thing that could leak. And look at this diaphragm here and see what kind of condition it's in. Actually, it looks pretty darn good. And check the action. It is moving the diaphragm. So we should have a pumping action that these two diaphragms will support. But now I've got to check the check valves. So I'm going to pause for a while and come back to you in a minute or so after I've figured out how I'm going to do that. Okay, I've got the check valves. I'm looking at them here, and these are crimped into place. So I don't have the tooling available to take these out and press new ones in. And these pumps are relatively inexpensive. So I am going to try one last thing before I just order another pump. They're about $50 from Rock Auto, $60. And I am going to just blow some air through here and see if there's a bit of debris blocking one of these valves and put it back together, and I'm going to test it again. We'll see what happens. Okay, I'm back. I've got my air compressor ready. It just cycled, so it was pretty noisy. All I'm going to do is just blow out these air valves. I actually blew them out really well while I wasn't filming. Make sure you go all different directions. And the interesting thing is when I was blowing it out, I thought I saw a little bit of debris come out of this valve right here. But of course it went on the floor and can't see it. Blow all this stuff out everywhere. And we'll reassemble it. Now, upon reassembly, honestly, I've lost track of where the orientation was. I can't remember where this was, but as you recall, we put stake marks on this before we took it apart. So just trusting my stake marks, I am going to put it there. I've got a little center punch mark right there, a little center punch mark right there. I can put that together, confident it's in the right orientation. So I've got all the flange screws here in place, and I want to just mention that you want to make sure that you don't have anything foreign material in there, and you want to make sure that when you torque these down, you torque them down evenly, because if you don't, you can end up cracking the casting on these things quite easily. And if you crack the casting because of torquing too much in one area at one time, that casting's finished. So, like on a wheel, just go every other screw until you get all the way around a few times, and you'll catch them all. Okay, we got that done. Now it's time to put this diaphragm on the top and this cap. Once again, it's got orientation stake marks on it. So we'll just locate that. There's one here and there's one here, so that's going to go on like that. So I like to use a flashlight sometimes when I want to make sure I've got something just right. These stake marks are very small. I just want to make sure I got it right. This cap will orient in any position. So if it's out a little bit, when you go to put it on the car, you can turn it later to adjust it. So we'll just torque that down. Just a simple screw, it doesn't take a lot of torque. And we'll see how that works. I'll get it set up with my pumping test tools, and we'll give that a try again and see if it passes the pumping test. If it doesn't, we're going to have to replace it. So I'm ready to do the pump test on the bench again and cycle it. And you'll see I'm still not getting any pumping action through there. It went really, really fast. It still doesn't do it. So I'm going to condemn that pump. I'm going to order another one in, and we'll go from there. Hope that helped you with your diagnosis. Of course, you could have done a similar test with the pump on the car if you hooked up the lines and into a can and did a similar arrangement. You could test it on the car by cranking the car over with your ignition power off the car so it doesn't make any spark. You don't want to have any fire. But this was relatively easy to get off the car and set up this bench test, and then I was able to take it apart and look at it inside in case I could fix it. In this case, I don't believe I'm going to try and fix it because I do not have the tools to put those new check valves into that body, so I'll just order a replacement. Thanks for looking, and I hope this helps somebody out. It's pretty simple stuff. If you're a mechanic and you've done this kind of work all your life, or if you've done a lot of hobbying on cars, it's pretty simple, but some people really haven't had very much exposure and they'd like to try doing these things. And I appreciate going on YouTube and finding videos on how to do different things, because even with 45 years of experience, there are things that I don't know, that I've never learned, or that I've forgotten, or that I just like a refresher on. Back in the day when I got my license back in 1974, we didn't have videos like this to help us, and I think they're a great tool. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks a lot. Bye.